Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Janet Lee Sheriff. I am the CEO of Golden Predator Mining Corp. I will be acting as the moderator today, and I welcome Jim Hesketh, the CEO of Viva Gold Corp, and William Sheriff, the Executive Chairman of Golden Predator Mining Corp. Recently, we announced a business transaction to merge the assets of Golden Predator and Viva. And today we'll be walking through a presentation outlining the proposed arrangement between the two companies. At the end, we will be seeking questions, and feel free at any time to post questions in the question box. At the end of the presentation, I will read out questions and propose them to both Bill and Jim, and then we will wrap up the presentation. I do also want to note that this presentation is being recorded and will be available on both the Viva Gold website and Golden Predator website following the presentation. Thank you again, and we will open the presentation commencing with Bill Sheriff. And Bill, I will pass this to you. Thank you.
All right, I welcome everyone to attending here. I'm trying to grab control here. Let's see. It doesn't seem to be giving me control here. Jim, if you want to just head on through it, I'll kind of go over the basic transaction here.
Okay.
Let's just go on to the next. There we go. Yeah, basically this business combination really builds one of the next premier gold production companies, combining the assets of the two companies, both of which are well advanced, and the management. Golden Predator is particularly glad to bring on board an operator, a proven operator that has built a number of mines throughout his distinguished career. And we think that's exactly what we need to take the Yukon assets we have and have been working on for so long and have developed into substantial resources and take them across the finish line into production. Similarly, the shareholders of Golden Predator benefit by exposure to the Nevada assets, which we'll get into in a little more detail, as well as a significantly enhanced board of directors. Management team will be myself and Jim Hesketh is our CEO, obviously. Mike Mizlowski will continue on from Golden Predator as Chief Operating Officer. And we'll have 4 board seats from the Golden Predator team, 3 from the Viva Gold team. The exchange ratio, 1.6 common shares of Golden Predator for each Viva share, ending up with Viva owning roughly 25% of the newly formed company. The total, one other item I should mention is we'll be distributing a bit of C2C shares. Currently, Golden Predator is in a control position of C2C Gold, a Newfoundland junior explorer, and we'll be distributing 8 million shares of those to the Golden Predator shareholders prior to the transaction closing. And that'll take Golden Predator down to about a 14% ownership, which they intend to carry at this point. We can move on. I think here again, I'm just I can't overemphasize the expertise. You know, it's a real different skill set for building a mine and for exploring and developing it. And with Jim and Mike carrying on as COO, we've got a really great mine building team, focusing on open pit heap leach technology. We've obviously strengthened not only the management team, but also the property position, as well as our jurisdictional exposure. Being in 2 different jurisdictions is quite good for the shareholders. You know, our responsibility in terms of ESG, we're going to continue that movement that Janet has been so key in moving forward. She's going to continue working with the First Nations and advancing our First Nations goals. And we'll obviously be leaders in the environmental end of things as well. And you won't really see a whole lot of change in that, other than you'll see the projects moving forward into production. And that's really what the investment proposition is. The scale of the company, also very significant. the market penalizes single asset companies. We've now are a dual asset company with a strong pipeline of growth exploration projects coming along. Here again, I'll touch on those in more detail, but the significance of putting these two together, we're over 1.1 million ounces of measured and indicated heap leachable gold resources, and right at a little over 700,000 ounces of inferred resources. Both of these numbers are growing. As you probably know, Golden Predator has a feasibility study underway that's due out in the next little bit, and that you should see changes there, and there's still significant exploration upside on the Nevada project as well, the Tonopah project. The exploration potential, of course, and balance sheet's really important, especially in these recent times in the gold market where most of the gold sector has been under quite a bit of pressure, becoming more difficult to finance, and obviously dilution is something we want to avoid. So having that strong balance sheet with $7 million in cash and marketable securities on board with no debt is very significant. Once again, just touch on the diversification. You're just a lot better off having your assets in more than one jurisdiction. The Yukon is where we've been focused. Jim's been focused in Nevada, both premier mining jurisdictions. Nevada's rated #1 in the Fraser Institute this year, so we're really good to get that exposure there. We look forward to successful operations in both jurisdictions. Go on. Just mention a little bit about the flagship assets. I've given you sort of an overview of the resources there. Based on the 2020 mineral resource estimate for Brewery Creek, you can see there that in the indicated leachable category, we've got just at almost 800,000 ounces at better than a gram, which is very good for heap leach. And also another almost 500,000 ounces of inferred at just under a gram. So total of about 1.2 million ounces, very nice resource. Sulfide, of course, will have to have some work done on it. Most importantly, the infrastructure at Brewery Creek, it's a previous operator, and having that in place is a good spot to be in. I touched on the bankable feasibility study that's underway and should be completed here in the not too distant future. And the revenue potential from this obviously is quite significant. Very similar, the Tonopah Gold Project is only maybe a half a step behind us. It's obviously in a very favorable jurisdiction in terms of infrastructure, climate, et cetera. Right in the middle of Nevada, right in the deep part of the mining areas there. Got a very promising project there. I was familiar with it when I was on the board of Midway Gold and have always thought quite a lot of it. I'm quite familiar with it. It's got a very low cost Capex, looking at a 40 to 50,000 ounce a year production profile, which when you combine with Brewery Creek puts us in a very good situation. The PEA that was done on that in 2020 was based on $1,400 gold price, very conservative figure, and came back with very, very good metrics. Here again, the paved road, electric, water lines, we'll get into that a bit more as well. You can see their current resource. Here again, it's going to grow from this with exploration, but measured and indicated about 326,000 ounces at right at 0.8 grams. And the inferred, which obviously can be upgraded, about 181,000 ounces. You move on. There we go. Just touch on this lightly. The pro forma cap structure, we're going to end up with 235 million shares outstanding, which at current market metrics puts about a $45-46 million market cap on a company with, right at 2 million ounces of gold and growing, and some of that permitted, and all of it, at least at the PEA stage or later, with excellent exploration projects. So I think you'll see that. Just a note to those that may be warrant holders or option holders in the companies, those will continue on, whether they were with Golden Predator or with Viva, and be adjusted at the share exchange ratio, so they'll benefit just as everyone else. Go ahead there. Here again, I would put our board of directors up against any small companies. I think we've got a truly elite board by bringing these two companies together. I'm chairman myself, but Jim, obviously, he's had many years with Rothschilds and Cyprus, put mines into production all around the world, and both from the financial side and the engineering side, quite an expert in that. So bringing him on board. Bill Harris has headed the audit committee at Golden Predator for years. Used to be a CEO of Hoist Fibers, part of a Fortune 500 Celanese Corporation. Stephen Spears, may be familiar with him from being Vice President of McEwen Mining, one of mining's future leaders. So we're quite pleased that he'll continue on with us. As Tony Lesiak as well. He's now with a royalty company, Star Royalty, and obviously spent many years at Canaccord in the financial side. Joining us from Viva will be Chris Harold, who's had an astonishing career, currently CEO of Solitario Zinc, formerly chairman of the Denver Gold Group for 10 years or more. I don't remember the exact number, but very well established, been with Echo Bay, Anaconda, and significantly developed the Crown deposit in Washington State and moved that along towards production where Ken Russ took over and moved it after acquiring it from Chris's company. And David Whittle joining our accounting group. He'd spent, I was familiar with David from his time at Alexco in the Yukon, and in fact, he was quite familiar with Brewery Creek, having been the firm we acquired it from originally, and enjoyed working with David in that role and look forward to his contributions on the board. As you can see, he's had quite a bit of experience on a number of different mining companies and gives us just an extremely strong audit function. Looking at the day-to-day management, here again, Jim will head up as the CEO. He's been over 12 years in the public company CEO roles, operating mines, building mines. And prior to that, of course, as I mentioned, the Rothschilds and Cypress, as well as Pincock, Allen Holt, Dresser, a whole host of different engagements all around the world with very successful mining operations. I think he'll do an incredible job moving these projects forward with this team we've got. Mike Mizlowski, our continuing Chief Operating Officer. He's been with the company now for over a decade. Really has been behind the advances in the resource building at Brewery Creek. We've taken it from about 100,000 ounces up to the resource I've mentioned. Quite accomplished, spent quite a bit of time operating an underground mine in Washington State, as well as various different open pit mines with Pegasus and others. And Stephen Krause rounds it out as the Chief Financial Officer, spent a number of years with a bunch of small mining companies, and he's coming along with Jim. They've worked together for years, and this really rounds out the team. Move on. One of the key things, of course, is I'd mentioned our association with the First Nations and our ESG. And that's important when I go into Brewery Creek here. We do have a benefits agreement with the Trandekwachen, whose traditional territory we're honored to be able to work in. And the good work Janet's done will continue. She's committed to the First Nations and continuing that relationship and leading the way in the progressive nature of our operations. With that, I'll tell you a little bit about Brewery Creek. Can go on to the next one there. For those of you that aren't familiar with Brewery Creek, it's about 50 kilometers from Dawson City, year-round road access. We're about 17 kilometers from grid power. We've got a 180 square kilometer project. The projects in the Yukon are huge by size and relatively inexpensive to maintain. So you can do exploration for a number of years and it carries forward. As I mentioned, we've taken this from 100,000 ounces when we picked it up back in 2009 up to its current 1.2 million ounces. We do have a Quartz mining license in place. It's under application for extension, and it does provide for a 4 million ton a year mining operation. This project operated between 1996 and 2002 under Viceroy Gold. They closed it in 2002 due to gold slipping down to about $257 an ounce, and just quite frankly, they hadn't exhausted the resources, but they weren't making any money. So they closed that. You can see below the general outline, there were 10 leach pad cells. Talk about infrastructure. There were 10 leach pad cells designed and permitted. Only 7 were built, and these were only partially filled. So one of the big advantages this has going forward is the leach pad is in place. There's still ore that can be reprocessed on the leach pad. That'll be a part of the upcoming feasibility study and integrating that with additional exploitation of the resources that are currently permitted, as well as looking at bringing in some others through amendment. Can go on there, Jim. Just a little bit of lay of the land shows you the very large property nestled in They're right along two major highways. Easy access. Dawson City has jet service now as well. I'll point that out. Go on. Next slide, please. And this shows you the back up one. There we go. This shows you the overview of the project, and it's color coded as to the level of development or permitting of the various ore bodies. Here again, the outer outline is part of the 180 square kilometer project. You can see the tan area, the irregular rectangular area, is the area of the quartz mining license permit as well as the water license permit. The blue is the leach pad. Here again, there are resources remaining and capacity remaining. The green are the pits and ore bodies that are currently permitted under those permits. And the yellow are resources that have been developed subsequent to those permits. These will have to be incorporated regardless by going through assessment through the ESSA process and then brought into whatever mining permit there is and exploited from there. Just as an illustration of the upside, you'll see 3 or 4 areas that are hatched. Ice Fog up in the upper central part, Lead Dog more in the right central part, and Classic and Lone Star. These are all exploration successes of the last decade that are still remain open in more than one direction, and they have not reached resource status yet, but they will be with more drilling. We're pretty confident of that. And it just shows to illustrate that as much work as we've done, there's still a great deal left. One thing I would point out again is scale. You see an arrow there right in the center that's 6 kilometers. We have continuous mineralization pretty much along 3 thrust faults that are parallel for 6 kilometers of strike. So this is truly a very, very large system. And the intrusive system down to the south where Classic and Lone Star is a separate mineralizing event. So we probably have some overprinting, and that may be quite frankly why we've got such a good grade on these. Go on and look at the next page, I believe will be our resource statement. Here again, the table at the top corresponds to the permitted areas. And you can see based on our last resource that we had 446,000 ounces in the indicated category. Importantly, there were no measured resources. And the reason I bring this up is with the new feasibility study that's underway, we haven't seen the end result, but we do see progress reports along the way. And I'm happy to report that we will be able to see some significant shift into the measured category. And it's looking good. We've still some work to do on it. So, you know, won't go beyond that, but it is certainly making meaningful advances to the project and something that we'll be looking forward to. You can see the lower table showing the existing resources here again prior to the feasibility study, but after the 2020 report showing the 342,000 ounces of indicated. So when you combine them, about almost 800,000 indicated, and then about 500,000 on the inferred. Importantly, even these permitted resources are open to expansion. Each time we've drilled there, we've had very good success increasing these and now actually connecting the individual deposits into a bigger pit, which is you know, very important for operational aspects. I'll go ahead. And just speaking on the exploration a little bit, and I won't belabor this long, but this shows you the 3 parallel thrust faults that we have. This is really illustrating the exploration potential. Most of the exploration at Brewery Creek since we've taken over the project has been driven by previous geochemical work done by Alexco or Viceroy. They just didn't really have the funds to pursue it with drilling. But there's a very strong correlation of surface geochemistry overlying these 3 parallel thrust faults, and then the 2 northwesterly faults that you show up there as well. And so we've historically hit over 75% of our holes in our exploration drilling. Obviously, once we're drilling in the resource areas, it gets a lot higher as we're doing infill drilling, but just shows you there's an awful lot of territory left to be discovered, and clearly it's going to grow. Can't tell you how much till we drill it, but it's clearly going to grow. Go ahead. Before I hand it off to Jim, I just want to reemphasize, this is the Tonopah project was one of Midway Gold's 2 premier projects. At the time, it had too high of a royalty on it and some other issues that have since gone away relating to water. But It was a real toss-up between pushing this one into production and the PAN project that Fiore has under production now. And the board decided to go that way primarily due to the royalty. It was over 5%, 6-7%, I think. It was a sliding scale. And one of the first things that Jim and the new management at Viva did was take the royalty and negotiate it down to a very reasonable figure. And just basically want to express my enthusiasm for not only the management coming in and Jim's abilities, but also this property. It's a first-rate property and one that I've followed for years. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Jim.
Hey, thanks, Bill. Yeah, I'll just talk about, before I dive into Tonopah, talk about some of my background with Brewery Creek. I was first introduced to the project as a tech agent for the debt syndicate on the original construction during my time at Rothschild Bank. And I got to see the site, and it went to closure during that time. And for the past year, I've been providing some advice on how to move that project forward, building metallurgical models, those sort of things. And I'm a pretty strong believer in the project. I think the feasibility study is going to be quite interesting, and there's going to be some very positive upside showing up. Anyway, looking at the Tonopah project, we acquired this project in 2017. The former explorers on the project included Core Mining, Realgum, Kennecott, Newmont, and Midway Gold. Both Kennecott and Newmont looked at the project as a Round Mountain analog. Round Mountain is just a 30 minutes drive to the north of us. And it's very simple. We're actually in the same lithologies, same rock packages and structural packages. So that was always the attraction to this project. As Bill said, we renegotiated the royalty. There had been a sliding scale index royalty that had gone to 7% NSR at $700 gold price. That gives you an idea as to how old that royalty was. Anyway, we renegotiated that down to a 2% flat NSR, no advance payments, and we have the option to acquire 1% for about $1 million. With this came a very extensive database of information, over 630 drill holes, geophysics. We've got 8 different types, ground and air, geologic information, technical information, environmental studies, a very in-depth and detailed database. So on the basis of being able to renegotiate the royalties, though, we were able to drop the cutoff grades. And Midway had looked at this project as a small, high-grade underground. We changed the concept to an open pit heap leach development idea. And actually, by changing that cutoff grade, we increased the gold ounces reportable by about 80%. So it was quite a shift. Anyway, let's move on. Sorry. Yeah, the key drivers on the Tonopah project, number one, we own 100% of it. It's located on the Walker Lane Trend in western Nevada. The deposit remains open. Our latest drilling program clearly indicated we hit on both ends of the major trend to the northwest and southeast step-out extensions. So we see the exploration upside. We've now completed a positive preliminary economic assessment that was based on $1,400 gold. We'll talk about those results. Truly, the unique aspect of this deposit is the high-grade starter pit. It's a near-surface resource, and that resource drives a very rapid capital payback. That reduces capital risk on the project as a whole. And we'll talk about that aspect here. The low cost, we're charging ahead now on a low cost open pit heap leach design. Really 40 to 50,000 ounces a year will be the production target from that. and that may increase as we continue to increase the resource with additional drilling. We also see strong leverage on this project, gold price. As we moved our design prices from $1,400 to $1,600, we gained about 50% increase in ounces. There will be additional increases as planning prices increase in the future. So the other key aspect of the project is truly excellent infrastructure. We have paved road access directly to the site. In prior presentations, I had pictures of FedEx delivery trucks delivering to the drill rig. So you don't get that in too many locations. Moving on, the resource. We've been able to increase the resources here substantially over time. And what we see here, the measured indicated, 326,000 ounces with an additional 181,000 ounces. Very solid grades for a Nevada open pit heap leach with a strong starter zone that's almost entirely measured. When you take a look at the resource at different cutoff grades, approximately 37% or 42% of the total ounces at a 1 gram cutoff grade exceed a 1 gram cutoff grade. So we do have high grade cores, and it's not just a single core. This is spread throughout the deposit. So looking at a long section, the starter pit zone, that's 2.7 million tons at 1.37 grams per ton. The mineralization starts 10 meters below surface gravels. This was a covered target on the valley floor. And what you see here in the red, that's 3 grams plus. And that indicates very quick access to high grade. And that is what drives the economics of this project, rapid payback. And if there's any metric in this business that I really hold dear, it's payback. That's when the capital is covered and you know you've made a good decision. So looking at the different zones going east, this long section goes from southwest to southeast to northwest. The deposit, it's a Horsten Graben. It's uplifted in the center, down dropped at one end. It comes back up again as we move further to the northwest. Our latest drilling did indicate new intercepts beyond the pit shell. And then particularly on the eastern flank, we drilled out on the pit wall there, the potential pit wall, and hit about 36 meters at 0.8 grams beyond what was deemed to be previously a bounding fault. So we see further upside in the project as a whole. Looking at the economics, the base case was completed at $1,400. We did, as a sensitivity, create an alternative case at $1,600. And the real justification behind that was a big step function in terms of size as you go from $1,400 to $1,600. But the base case at $1,400, the project had a 2.9-year payback and a $43 million discounted value at NPV 5%, net present value. After tax, that was $36 million present value. That jumps significantly. If you look at the right-hand box, you look at today's prices from $1,700 to $2,000, payback drops down to 2 years and 1.5 years. So this is an indication. And if you take a look at this pre-tax cash flow at the current price levels, that's almost 10 times Viva's current market cap. So that is the potential of this project as we move forward. Total capital about 58 million, sustaining capital about 16 million, 6 to 9 year mine life depending on the case. So very solid, low-cost development and production potential there. So looking at the site, the road in the background is the paved road that goes to Round Mountain. The road that comes into the picture is a chip seal road. There's a sign there that says, as you do that turnoff, it says next gas 142 miles. We need to move this road. It's a county road. That shouldn't be much of an issue. We have crossing our claims a pipeline belonging to Tonopah Public Water Utilities, where we will be able to acquire commercial rate water. Associated with that pipeline, there's a 15 kilovolt power line upgradable to 25 kilovolt. That's right on the property. We have equipment supply depots in Las Vegas and Round Mountain. Las Vegas is about a 3.5-hour drive. Round Mountain's 30 minutes. The project also, as part of Newmont's work on this, they completed a exploration level environmental assessment and cultural resource studies. At the time, no red flags were produced, and the project was issued a plan of operations on that basis. We're currently in the early stages right now of updating a lot of these historic studies and getting ready to move towards the permitting stage for construction. We're also have recently completed a geotechnical slope analysis pre-feasibility level. We still need to drill about 4 core holes to bring it to feasibility. But we're doing the work right now required to take this project into feasibility this year and then move that on to the permitting stage. And we are starting to do pre-permitting consultation meetings with the regulators in that regard. So that's it for Tonopah. Moving on, this is a project in Golden Predator's portfolio, the Marc project in the Yukon. This is a polymetallic project. This was formerly belonged to Atna Resources, which is a company that I had previously run. So I'm quite familiar with this project as well. Anyway, this is a high-grade polymetallic. It's a bit of a hidden gem inside the Golden Predator portfolio, but I do look forward to doing work on this project as we move forward too. I believe that the mineralization outcrops at surface and dips to depth, and the grades here, the contained metal is fabulous. Anyway, we move on. 2 more projects, and Bill, I'll turn this one over to you, Gold Dome and Grue Creek.
Yeah, just to touch on the exploration projects that Golden Predator had moved along until we had advanced Brewery Creek to the point we were aiming at production, and so our exploration was put on the back burner. Gold Dome, we have about 100 drill holes in this. It's a very large project. It's the biggest geochem anomaly in the Yukon. We've got some pretty impressive drill holes out of it, scattered across a 5-mile extent of drilling. As it's also worth pointing out, it's the same age intrusive, and it's sitting across the valley just south of Victoria's Eagle Mine. And so it's certainly got tremendous potential, just needs some attention. And it's a nice pipeline project behind the others that are far ahead of it in permitting. Grue Creek, here again, this is an epithermal bonanza deposit sitting right along the main Tintina Fault. It is a very young deposit by Yukon standards. We drilled it and put, I don't know, 40 or 50 holes in it. I think highlighted by 146 meters of 1.7 grams from 100-foot depth. And similarly, another couple of holes, 60 meters of 6 grams, etc. We had actually chased the vein to depth, found it got cut off, done a bit of drilling, figured out where it went, and pre-colored some holes ready to drill to find the offset of that to continue building the resource there, geologic resource. And we just never did go back because we've devoted all of our time and attention to Brewery Creek. Now with the expanded company and the 2 projects in the production pipeline with revenue coming, it won't be right away, but both of these projects hold some real potential as well as the Marg. Just a matter of time and resources to get to them. And I think we touched on this earlier, but just to confirm, there will be 8.6 million shares of C2C Gold that'll be distributed to the GPY shareholders prior to the merger. And this here again takes Golden Predator out of a control position in that company. You don't really want to be in a control position, and they'll be left with about a 13-14% position. Go ahead. Just to really summarize this without going on and on too much, the real key here is proven mine building team. Jim coming along and with his directors and his staff coming in and joining ours really cements the necessary technical abilities to take these 2 key projects into production. The 2 projects, obviously a lot better than one, we'll get a definite increase in the market valuation of that. The visibility of having it in 2 jurisdictions will certainly make life easier going through permitting. Having cash and securities on hand, obviously cost synergies at the basic corporate level of merging these 2. And our continued environmental stewardship and also obviously working closely with the communities and most importantly with the First Nations. I think with that, we'll probably open it up to questions.
Thank you. It's Janet Sheriff here. Thank you, Bill and Jim, for that presentation. It's greatly appreciated. I do have a number of questions that I've been fielding through the presentation. Some of them overlap, so I'm going to summarize in some cases to combine them. First, Jim, I wanted to say I think it's fabulous that you can get FedEx delivery to the drill rig. In a snowstorm, I can't get FedEx delivery at my house. You're very fortunate. I'll start with the first question, and this is for Bill. Bill, how important was it to put Golden Predator in the hands of a CEO that you know and trust with Jim?
Well, I think it's obviously paramount. Quite frankly, it's no mystery. We had a great team for exploring and moving forward and even into the development phase. But when we were able to bring Jim in as a part-time consultant to lead our technical end, it just really crystallized. We've known each other, I think, 20 some years, and it just really crystallized the need and desire to an absolute necessity really to take it into production. You've got to have that technical ability, and we were lacking that. Jim's resume of accomplishments is, like I say, sterling, and just really, quite happy and looking forward to working together with him and the whole team to take these projects, both of them, right into production.
Thanks, Bill. I have to say that I enjoyed my first underground mine tour about 8 years at Jim's project. So that was a great experience that I had. My next question is for you, Jim. Why Golden Predator? I'm sure you've had other options you could consider. What was it about the assets at Golden Predator that made you see some value for your shareholders?
Yeah, it's over the last couple of years, yes, I've had a lot of inquiries from a number of companies. And, at the end of the day, it comes down to making sure that 1 + 1 = 3 or even 4. And most of the companies that talked to me really didn't bring that to the table. Golden Predator brings a pipeline of assets, Brewery Creek ready. It's going to have to go through a permanent amendment process, but it's pretty well ready to move forward. Tonopah's ready to move forward. And then there's a pipeline of other gems in the works. There's a very solid treasury here to work with. And overall, some diversification in the jurisdictions, which is very useful. You know, we do have changes coming in the U.S. permitting environment. That's a given. So we've got two good jurisdictions, but you know, you always run into challenges. So really, it's how do you move back and forth? And then the Golden Predator team, got comfort with them. I've got comfort with the assets themselves. Some of them I've known over quite a number of years, particularly Brewery Creek and Marc. So you add it all up, and it was a good synergistic concept to approach.
Great. Thank you very much, Jim. Bill, this one's for you. Seems to be, I'm reading between the lines here, seems to be some questions about how the bankable feasibility study is going. And why would you announce this ahead of a bankable feasibility study?
Well, good questions. The feasibility study has been delayed by a number of things, several times, as you know. Increasing scope of the feasibility study to encompass some of the other deposits is part of it. COVID delays, half the team still working from home. Virtually the entire Canadian team is working from home. Certainly slows things down. The Assay Labs are probably the biggest single factor. You know, as people may recall, we did a pretty extensive geotech drilling as well as infill drilling to try and tie together more of those resources into one geometric pit shell. And we just got our last assays, you know, I think it was early this year. And that was from, oh gosh, I don't know, early fall drilling or late summer. So the Assay Labs have been backed up, and not just for us. You read it on everybody else's press release. They've been backed up pretty horrendously across the industry. So you take all those factors together, and the expanded scope of the feasibility study to include some of those other deposits that were in yellow on the map, and that explains the delay in it. Here again, Jim's been working with it. Why to do it now? Quite frankly, both companies are moving forward in terms of progressive things. If you wait until the news is stopped, which I don't think there'll be a time where the news is stopped, you really aren't doing it for the right reasons. You know, we aren't trying to time the merger for news or time it for the market. It's something we've been working on, and it's just something we've reached an agreement on, and it's time to move forward. I think actually more importantly, having the feasibility study roughly in the same time frame as the merger, and actually having someone at the helm that not only can but has repeatedly taken things into production only enhances the value of that feasibility study. Quite frankly, the feasibility study without someone there to you know, make it happen and actually put the mine into production is of limited value. It's the package deal that makes a lot more sense. So I think the timing's actually quite good.
Thanks, Bill. I have to add my 2 cents in here as the current CEO of Golden Predator. I've been honored to do what I have done in this position, and I know when it's time to put somebody in with a different skill set, and I'm glad it's Jim. One question for you, Jim, that I'm not sure you can under regs answer at this time because of your studies, but do you have a Capex for the Tonopah project? Part A, and part B is what's your total expenditure on exploration to date, which I understand predates your company as well. So, but I'll put those 2 out there for you.
In terms of the Capex on Tonopah, the PEA outlined about 58 million for the base case with 16 million sustaining Capex. And that was on the basis of acquiring everything, full truck fleet, crusher, etc. And that was, you know, we wanted to hit the project with a full load. We didn't assume contract mining, stuff like that. Those are trade-off studies for the future. And yeah, we can probably reduce that capital. But on the first approach, we hit the project with everything, and it came out well. In terms of money spent, it's hard to say because there's been drilling on this project since the 1980s. There's been over 90,000 meters of drilling conducted. Probably about 40% of that's core, about 60% RC. And the programs covered not just the Tonopah project itself, but in the case of Newmont and Kennecott, it was part of a wide recon program. So we've got data over about 20 miles of, the Right Patch Valley trend, part of the Walker Lane trend, but it's a very broad range of data. So what's applied to the project and what's applied to regional recon, two different things. But I would have to say the sunk cost has been somewhere between, I'd say probably $25 and $30 million.
Great. Thank you both. Thank you very much. It's a question for both of you. I'll let Bill, you can answer the Brewery Creek one first, and then Jim on Tonopah. A couple of questions asking about the royalties held. I know recently the royalty at Brewery Creek with Alexco was sold to Silver Wheaton, but if you want to just say anything about that, Bill, and then Jim, they'd like to know a little bit about who holds the royalty at Tonopah.
Well, just to quickly answer on Brewery Creek, I think that's a major endorsement on the project to have Silver Wheaton aggressively acquire that royalty. And they do have a relationship with Alexco, but they certainly didn't have anything other than an arm's length transaction on it. It was I view it as an endorsement of the Yukon and also of the project.
I believe they also paid a fair market value for the royalty as well.
That's right. That's what I was saying. It's definitely a arm's length transaction. So,
Jim, any details you can provide about Tonopah?
Yeah, we have a 2% NSR royalty, and it's owned by two former prospectors, Tom Patton and David Schmidt, his estate. And that, I believe, has been passed on to a community church. So they split the royalty 2%, and we have the option to acquire 1% of the 2% for $1 million. And that's attached to 138 of the 444 claims on the property. So it's the other claims, there are no royalties. So what we've got realistically is a very clean position, and it's quite likely that as we move forward, we'll probably acquire that 1% option.
Okay, thank you very much. We have no shortage of questions, so I think I'm going to budget about 3 more, just so everybody can wrap up on the top of the hour. One I'm going to take for myself, because it's First Nation related, and the other 2 are for both Jim and Bill. One question has come up that I will take is there's important economic benefits to the Yukon and Indigenous communities from development of the Brewery Creek. How is the Yukon government economic development objectives aligned with the regulatory and permitting approval process? Golden Predator's always taken a very different approach to how we move a project forward, and our key responsibility is to the First Nation. And it's our belief that if we do this right, and there is only one way to do it, and that's right, that there will be the opportunity for local wealth creation, jobs, contracts, benefits, and sustainable development. And so Golden Predator aligns itself with the economic and environmental objectives of the Trondakwichen at Brewery Creek. We have a very healthy, open relationship. We meet regularly. We had a meeting right before this call, and hopefully they're watching as well. And we will move the project forward in a way that benefits both the Indigenous community with the local community and the shareholders. And in Canada, Trondakwichen is a level of government. They are far more than a stakeholder and very important to us as a working partner. For Bill and Jim, I'm getting a lot of questions about anticipated timelines for development of the two projects. So, Bill, do you want to go first?
Well, I will. And, the other thing I do is just to follow up on your last comment. One of the more overlooked profitable aspects of a mining operation is community support and your ease of getting through the hurdles that are always associated with that. And that's a big plus. So what's good for the community is good for the shareholders. And I think, profit at the end of the day is good for all of us. In spite of some of the recent developments, capitalism is still a good thing, and we're certainly going to be trying to take advantage of that. As for the timelines, Jim's probably better off to talk about that than I am. But in general, I mean, you're really at the putting a pin in the timeline is difficult when you've got a permitting situation that involves multiple government agencies. I would say that we are close. Obviously, having a permit in hand now and going for an extension is a lot better than not having a permit at all. So we're far down that road, and having had the studies done and having had the mine plans done and many of the things that go into the feasibility study, plus the long operational history, certainly are an advantage for us. Is it going to happen next month? No, but these are all positive things. And Jim mentioned they're already in early talks on their property with the government and moving forward on their permitting. So, these are all tailwinds and things that add to it. But in terms of a specific timeline, I would refrain and see what Jim has to say about that. Permitted a lot more than I have.
Well, in terms of Tonopah, one of the things this merger does for us, there's a solid treasury here that isolates us a bit from these short-term upturns, downturns in gold price, and that'll allow us to move forward in on the feasibility work. You have to complete at least a disturbance footprint to be able to initiate permitting. We're also working right now on all of the geochemical test work on, rock type characterization. We've done completing this pit slope analysis. All the sort of work that feeds into feasibility study is currently underway at Tonopah. And in the U.S. process, what the BLM wants to see is that we've completed all of that baseline work before we start permitting, and hence the pre-consultation meetings. We start to meet with the regulators, and they start telling us, giving us guidance on what they want to see, and that's work that we need to complete. So our goal here has been to move into feasibility study probably later in this first half of this year, and then initiate permitting a little later in the year, in the second half. And under the current administrative guidelines, an EIS, Environmental Impact Study in the US, has a 1-year statutory timeline for review. And so that one I can give you, that's a statutory timeline. And that would put us potentially at a construction decision on Tonopah by the towards the end of next year. And it's a relatively quick project to build. The plants, the ADR plant that we would put together can be prefabbed off-site ahead of time. Crushing plants prefabbed off-site. So it's not a detailed construction. Most of this stuff would show up on axles. You take the axles off and fit it for the foundation. So that's really the goal moving forward. So potentially, we could see, like I said, that construction decision towards the end of next year, if things all go right. Now, in the permitting realm, you can never count on it. And that's one of the benefits of having this multi-project approach, is that you bring two projects along. We're a little bit behind Brewery Creek at Tonopah, but which one gets to the end line first in terms of issued permits is the one that gets capitalized first. So that'll be the goal here.
Great, thank you. I see we're at the top of the hour, so I just wanted to let everyone know there's been far more questions than we've had the time to answer, so I've tried to combine where possible. I wanted to give Bill and Jim any final thoughts before I wrap this up. Bill?
Only one I can say is, it just makes sense when you look at it. And I think Jim's last comment about having two contenders to the finish line puts both of them in a stronger position. With the capital and the team behind it able to do it, you've got a bit of a horse race on which one gets into production quicker. And really doesn't matter in the combined entity. It provides the cash flow to bring the second one right online, right behind the first one. So I think it makes a lot of sense from a lot of angles.
Thank you, Bill. Jim, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll agree with those comments. This is a growth and building exercise. For Viva in particular, we were in a bit of a moat, and I believe that this combination will be very positive for the Viva shareholders. We will be holding a shareholder meeting. The information circulars are currently being prepared and will be sent out forthwith. So I look forward very much to working with Bill, the Golden Predator team, and our shareholders as a whole. I think this is a wonderful opportunity. It's a little unique in today's market, what we're doing here. And I think that this is a good wealth creation concept for everybody.
Great, thank you, Jim. And thank you both Bill and Jim and all of our attendees today. If you have any further questions or if you feel your questions weren't answered adequately, please do feel free to follow up with us, info@goldenpredator.com or info@vivagoldcorp.com. We also, you can check us out on our websites. This will be posted on both websites for future information or to pass along to others that weren't able to make it. There were a number of questions on how what the key drivers were in enhancing shareholder value, but I think Bill and Jim did a great job in summarizing that. And I thank everyone for their time today and look forward to our next session at a future date. Bill and Jim, thank you both very much. I wish you both great success as this moves forward. And thank you all today.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks to the audience and thank you, Janet.
Yeah, thank you very much, Janet. Look forward to our next meeting.